Welcome to my house and welcome to Melbourne and everything else.
Thanks.
Now, the girl from New Jersey. Tell us the story.
That's me. Yeah, I was born in Jersey, but my parents are actually from Colombia.
Right.
From South America, so we went back and forth for a really long time, and they just settled in New Jersey. They had this friend of theirs living there, and that's where their sort of familiar base was.
Right, now, with the Wall of Smiles album basically being the second album, tell us your career, of how you got into the recording industry, and what sort of music were you listening to coming from Colombian parents in New Jersey?
Actually, the music that I just fell in love with just from an early age was very like folk type Colombian music with guitar and voice and maybe like some really cool vocal arrangements. Very strong like lyrical quality. That's what I loved.
Right.
And then I started playing guitar when I was 5, went into classical violin later on and started writing, and after I got out of college I sort of had my catalog together and made the demo tape, sent it out. Right. Met a couple of people, and then through...
So what year was this? 1994?
Well, 95. I sent out some tapes, and I met this guy on this flight. I was a flight attendant for a while after school.
You're joking? No. What airline?
United.
United.
Hey! Skies.
I travel United.
Yeah, although they bumped me on my way to Sydney, so I'm mad at them because I had to fly American Airlines. Right. Yeah, I met this guy on this flight, and we started talking, and he was turned out to be the president of Latin American Polygram, and he got my tape, and there we went. I had my songs in Spanish and English on the demo, and they just took off from there. Now,
tell me, I mean, like, being in New Jersey, and okay, you're into Colombian folk and Latin American music. You know, two of the big names coming from New Jersey, obviously, is Bruce Springsteen and Bon Jovi. Were you ever fans of those two?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I have this picture of me when I was in high school, and I've got this Bruce or bust sign, and I was hitchhiking to a Bruce Springsteen concert. Right. And they actually, I had snuck out of the house, and the newspaper had taken a picture of me, and I was on the paper, so I got nailed big time. Mom and Dad saw the picture and like, you went to the concert. You weren't supposed to go. And I was like, oh.
Actually, I mean, it's quite amazing when you look at New Jersey, and even then when you're coming from, if you're coming from, say, like the airport, and you go through New Jersey, and then you get, before you get into New York and under the Holland Tunnel or whatever, there's Hoboken, but yet there's so much music and acts have come from Hoboken as well, you know, including Frank Sinatra way back.
Yeah, and now too when I got to college, and I started writing, you know, I was writing my stuff. I played in little bars and coffee houses and stuff, and that's really where I got my feet sort of grounded and tried out some songs and tried out different styles and played, you know, lead guitar with bad rock bands and like, you know, did that whole thing. It was in that Hoboken, in the North Brunswick area, and in New York as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go with the single that's causing all the fuss here, and it's called So Far Away, and here it is right now, and we'll talk about the first album, and because I love Latin American music. I mean, give me a can, I'll have Castanovas and God knows what going. Here it is. So, I love Latin American music, and I have for a long, long, long time. But basically now, I mean, worldwide, I mean, it's really come of age, you know. Certainly on the mainstream charts, and you know, when you've got all these different artists coming from, obviously from Miami and Los Angeles and everywhere.
Yeah.
Why do you think?
You know, I think it's even within Latin America, there's been a boom. Finally, within Latin America, you have like Colombian pop music or rock music being heard in Argentina and in Mexico, and it's not all just coming out of one place. I think it's just finally, it's just sort of it's getting a bigger microphone. If that's sort of a good expression. Finally, the labels are seeing that there's a value in showing that music elsewhere outside of their home country.
Was it a big step? I mean, you were saying how you met the guy from Polygram who had the Latin American base. Was it a big step for you to go from New Jersey into sort of Manhattan itself? I mean, that crossover, even though there's just the river between the town?
No, but actually I should have backed up a little bit. Actually, when I met him, I was in Miami. I moved to Miami about 7 years ago. Less than that, 6 years ago. So I was just jumped into that whole Latin American thing, and actually that music vibe that's there is pretty strong.
Fantastic.
It's pretty strong, and it's really exciting. The musicians there are just so fantastic, and they can play either really Latin stuff, or my stuff is really just pop sort of music with a lot of other influences, but you find musicians there that can just adapt to anything.
Well, and we've had just over the last few weeks when Ricky Martin came out, and The Cup of Life and Maria. I mean, it just went mad. I'm #1 on the charts, etc. Which I think is another great intro for Australians to take in some Latin American influences, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
The thing I love about New York, though, is that there are so many clubs and so many restaurants come clubs we can go to with you know, Argentinian music, Brazilian music, Colombian music. I mean, it's just a potpourri of wonderful mixtures in New York, you know?
And also in Miami as well, though. It's fantastic. One of the things that I like to do is I don't like to go to, like, the clubs in South Beach, which are, like, the end place to go. I don't like to do that. I like to go to these places, like in Hialeah or on Little Havana, like these clubs where in restaurants where you find these guys who don't have a record contract and don't have this, but their musicianship is just unbelievable, you know, and you hear, like, you feel it, you know, you smell the food, and you've got, like, you know, the local brew, and you're all just hanging out, and it's just, it's so alive, and it's so real. That's what I love.
The last time I was there, I went, because a friend of mine, who's Brazilian, who was with a dance troupe called Aroba, they had started up their own dance troupe when they got back to America, or back to Brazil, and came up to Miami, and he took me out one night, and it was just the most unbelievable thing, you know. Look, I'll tell you what, let's have a look at the Oz charts and we'll come back in a moment.
Steps are into the top 5, moving from 7 to 5 with Last Thing on My Mind. 5's When the Lights Go Out has dropped 1 spot to #4. Same story for Prize Michelle, losing a spot to get Ghetto Superstar into #3. Word must be out that the Lighthouse family are in Australia soon because High has jumped 2 places to #2. And no change for #1, it's the Goo Goo Dolls with Iris.
Right, there it is, the Oz chart for this week, and Brandy and Monica. The Boy Is Mine at #6, and we're going to play Monica's new single. It's called The First Night, in a moment. Now, Soraya, getting back to the Miami thing, I went there. I go there quite a bit, you know, and I've stayed at that amazing hotel called the Delano.
Oh, I love it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. I sometimes take a weekend and stay there,
Yeah,
even though I live there. It's
I mean, the
just
first time I booked in there, I thought I was in a mental asylum with all of being white and etc. etc. Once I got over that,
except for the green apple and the. Did you take the sweets out by the pool?
And I took the pencils, the whole thing.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
But as I say, back to that Latin American thing, it really is having some influences now. I guess, you know, Gloria Estefan has been, you know, has been part of that whole career, certainly from Miami. You know.
Yeah, I think she was essential. I think if it hadn't been for her career, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be happening. Especially, I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter. She was one of the first singer-songwriters, which is really what she is, before me, to come around and do an English record and a Spanish record. So I think because she did it, when I came to the label, they didn't see it as such a crazy idea, you know, because she had already done it.
Now, even with the current single, I mean, you'll do a version in Spanish, and that actually was released. How long ago? I mean, in the Spanish version.
The Spanish, well, I have it. The whole record is in Spanish,
right?
And that was released about 7 months ago.
Right.
7 months ago. It's been sort of a staggered release this time.
Now, do you find, even in America, you make charts on the Spanish charts or the Spanish-orientated charts there, and the dance charts, and then also the mainstream charts and the AC charts?
Yeah, and with the first record, it was incredible. The first single off the first record was Suddenly in English, and the Spanish is De Repente. And when De Repente was charting on the Latin charts, Suddenly was charting on the AC. De Repente was on the Latin pop, and Suddenly was on the AC English. It was kind of cool.
And tell me, I mean, as far as Europe, Spain, have you been there? And
yeah, definitely. Right now we're going to Germany now. After
Germany's huge in as well.
Germany just opened their arms and took my music in, which was fantastic. And now I've done So Far Away in French, so that will be a French release in September.
You've done one in French?
Yeah.
How many languages do you speak?
3.
Oh, wow.
3, yeah.
Well, I struggle through one, actually. All right, listen, it's been an absolute delight. And now that it's booming here, people should go back and listen to your first album. And come back and do some performances as well.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to come down with my whole band and give you guys hopefully a good show.
Okay, we're about to go into the new one from Monica. These 2 young girls, I mean, Brandy and Monica, I mean, gone to #1 in the American charts this week with The Boy Is Mine.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, there's so many young performers coming out of America now, you know?
I think it's great, and both these girls have such a killer voice, so I wish them the best.
Absolutely. So let's go, and thank you again. And here it is, Monica with The First Night.